Okay, let's set the scene. January 28th, 2025. Something happened that just rocked the tech world. A financial earthquake. And this seismic shock didn't start in Silicon Valley. Nope, it came from China, and it completely changed the game for AI forever. Just look at this number. That's $1 trillion, with a T, wiped out, gone from the US stock market in one single day. The source material we're looking at called it a bloodbath. And honestly, that's not an exaggeration. This was one of the biggest shocks the industry had ever seen. So you gotta ask, right? What on earth could cause a panic that big? Was it some kind of massive cyber attack? A global internet outage? The truth? Well, the truth was something nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. It all came down to this: the release of a brand new AI model called DeepSeek R1. Yeah, a piece of software from a pretty unknown Chinese company somehow managed to send the absolute titans of Silicon Valley into a complete and utter tailspin. All right, so what is this AI that caused all this chaos? Let's meet the disruptor, shall we? Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting because you can see the huge difference in strategy. On one side, you've got the top US models, super powerful, sure, but they cost a fortune, like $200 a month, and their code is a locked down secret. Then, out of nowhere, DeepSeek R1 shows up. It performs just as well, but it's totally free. And it's open source, meaning anyone can see the code, use it, change it. This wasn't just a new competitor. This was a direct assault on the entire AI business model. And the stats? I mean, they're just insane. They built this thing in 2 months for a reported $5.6 million. To give you some perspective, its rivals were burning through hundreds of millions, some even billions, to get the same kind of results. It was an instant hit, shot straight to #1 in the App Store, and left the entire industry just scratching their heads asking, how is that even possible? So, to figure out how they pulled this off, we gotta pop the hood and look inside. The secret sauce isn't just one thing. It's in the fundamental architecture, the very design of DeepSeek's digital brain. It all comes down to a clever technique called mixture of experts, or MOE for short. And the best way to think about it really is like a university. See, instead of having one giant, super genius professor who has to know everything about everything, an MOE model has different expert departments. You've got your math department, your language department, your coding department. You get the idea. And this is how it works in practice. It's pretty brilliant. So a question comes in, let's say it's a tricky math problem. A little router system immediately sends that question to the math department. Now here's the magic. Only that small, specialized part of the AI wakes up to solve it. It crunches the numbers, gets the answer, and sends it back. And the whole time, the rest of this huge AI brain is just off. It's not using any power. This saves a crazy amount of time, energy, and money. It is just radically efficient. But, whenever something this disruptive comes along, it's never a simple story. DeepSeek's incredible rise, well, it came with a whole lot of controversy. And people started asking some really tough questions about how they actually built it. So let's go back to that number that was in all the headlines. $5.6 million. Is it really possible to build a world-class AI for that cheap? Well, the answer gets a little complicated. Because if you dig into the fine print of DeepSeek's own research paper, they kind of admit that that $5.6 million figure doesn't cover everything. It leaves out all the prior research, the failed experiments, the cost of all the data. So yeah, the true cost is definitely higher. But, and this is the key takeaway, even so, it was still almost certainly just a tiny fraction of what the big US companies were spending. And then the bombshell dropped. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, came out and publicly accused them. They told the Financial Times they had evidence that DeepSeek was basically using ChatGPT's answers to train its own model. That's a huge deal. It's essentially intellectual property theft. OpenAI even said they'd blocked DeepSeek's accounts months before this new model ever came out. And this brings up a massive question for anyone actually using these tools. It's a fundamental trade-off, really. When you use something like ChatGPT, your data is stored on servers in the United States. But if you use DeepSeek, that same data goes to servers in the People's Republic of China. It's a very clear choice, and for a lot of people, and especially big companies, that's a huge factor to consider. So, you see, the arrival of DeepSeek was never just a business story. It immediately blew up into a geopolitical issue. What used to be a race between companies suddenly became a high-stakes race between nations. A lot of people started calling this the Sputnik moment of AI, and that's a perfect comparison. Just like when the Soviet Union launched the Sputnik satellite back in the 50s and it shocked the US into action, DeepSeek's release was a massive wake-up call. It was a direct challenge to America's leadership in tech, and you can bet the White House started looking into the national security side of things right away. This whole situation fits perfectly into a classic theory in geopolitics called the Thucydides trap. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. It's what happens when a rising power threatens to take the place of an established dominant power. It creates this intense, dangerous tension. And right now, in the 21st century, that power struggle is playing out right here, in the world of AI. And if you want to understand their motivation, just listen to DeepSeek's founder, Liang Wenfeng. He's pretty clear about it. He says their goal isn't just about making a quick buck. It's about fundamentally advancing the frontier of technology. His argument is that for too long, China has been good at cashing in on innovations made somewhere else. But to truly innovate, he says, you need the confidence to lead from the front. So, where does all this leave us? Well, one thing's for sure, the AI landscape is never going to be the same. The game has changed and a whole new rule book is being written for the race for tomorrow. And that new rule? It's simple. It's all about efficiency. DeepSeek basically proved to the world that you don't need to have the most money or burn the most energy to build a world-class AI. The goal isn't just bigger is better anymore. Now it's all about being smarter, leaner, and the whole lot faster. And the ripple effects were felt everywhere, instantly. All of a sudden, those big US companies started to look kind of bloated and inefficient. OpenAI had to scramble and make one of its own models free just to keep up. Over in China, even the tech giants like Alibaba and Tencent were forced to slash their prices. And get this, through it all, DeepSeek's hyper-efficient model meant they were reportedly still making a profit, while their rivals were just bleeding cash. Which brings us to the big, final question we have to leave you with. This new, supercharged race is pushing AI forward faster than we ever thought possible. But as we all chase this goal of smarter, cheaper, more powerful intelligence, you have to stop and ask, what's the ultimate price we're all going to pay for this progress?